We are taught that power roars, that it is the thunder of a raised voice, the force that shatters shields and splinters thrones. But this is a grand deception, taught by the loud to impress the weak. The truly dangerous trait, the one that forges emperors from dust and silently topples dynasties, is not a sound. It is a stillness, a quiet so absolute that it absorbs the fury of others and turns it into the very instrument of their undoing. What is this trait that the truly powerful guard more closely than any crown? This is the conventional theater of power, a stage upon which most of humanity performs a tired and predictable play. They believe strength is measured in decibels, in the speed of a retort, in the visible tremor of their righteous anger. They see an insult and feel compelled to return it, a challenge as a command to engage. They are praised, and they swell with pride. They are slighted, and they seethe with resentment. They operate under the illusion of control, believing their immediate forceful reactions are a sign of dominance. In reality, they are puppets. Their strings are not held by a single master, but by every random word, every minor inconvenience, every passing emotion that drifts into their perception. The man who is easily angered is controlled by those who seek to anger him. The woman who is desperate for validation is owned by anyone who can offer a morsel of praise. Their strength is a hollow drum. It makes a great noise, but it is empty and vulnerable, collapsing under the slightest pressure. This reactive state is not one of power, but of profound weakness. It is a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the chaotic winds of circumstance. The reactive individual believes he is navigating the storm, when he is merely being thrown against the rocks by it. He exhausts his energy in pointless skirmishes, defending the fragile walls of his ego. He reveals his entire strategy, his deepest fears, and his most coveted desires through his emotional outbursts. His predictability is his undoing. An enemy need only learn the simple tune that makes him dance, and he will dance his way to his own ruin. He mistakes motion for progress and noise for authority. He is an open book, written in a language that even a fool can read, and a wise adversary reads it from cover to cover before making a single move. This is the path of the majority, the wide and well-trodden road to mediocrity and defeat. It is the path of the pawn who believes himself a king, unaware that his every move is anticipated by the silent player on the other side of the board. But there exists another path, a path walked in shadows, guided by ancient wisdom. It is the way of the true strategist. Sun Tzu teaches us, the victorious warrior wins first and then goes to war, while the defeated warrior goes to war first and then seeks to win. This is the fundamental secret. The war is not won on the battlefield of men, in the boardroom or in the arena of public opinion. The first and most critical war is won in the silent, unforgiving terrain of your own mind. The most dangerous trait, the one that grants true power, is not an action at all. It is a masterful, cultivated, and absolute state of being. It is called sovereign non-reactivity. Sovereign non-reactivity is the ability to absorb any stimulus, a threat, an insult, a crisis, a declaration of love, without an immediate, uncontrolled internal or external reaction. It is not apathy. It is not passivity. The apathetic man does not care. The strategist cares about everything, which is precisely why he refuses to let his response be dictated by anything but his own will and timing. He sees the incoming arrow, observes its trajectory, calculates its intent, and only then decides whether to step aside, catch it, or ignore it completely. The reactive man simply allows himself to be struck. To achieve this state, your mind must become a fortress. Your consciousness is the king within and your will is the gatekeeper. When a provocation arrives at the gates, the gatekeeper does not throw them open in panic. He observes the messenger, he analyzes the message. He gauges its truth, its purpose, and its potential impact, and more often than not, he finds it unworthy of entry. He simply turns it away. The insult, the rumor, the fear-mongering, they are left to starve outside your walls. This inner stillness is the ultimate source of power. While the reactive man burns his reserves of energy in pointless emotional fires, the strategist conserves his. He remains in a state of calm, hyper-aware clarity. This calm is terrifying to an opponent. They expect a reaction. They need it. A reaction provides them with data. It tells them their attack has landed. It feeds their ego. It draws you down into the mud with them. When you offer nothing but a placid, unreadable calm, you deny them everything. You create a void, a vacuum of information, and the human mind abhors a vacuum. They will rush to fill it with their own fears, their own insecurities, their own paranoid projections. They begin to fight shadows, questioning their own strategy, wondering what you know that they do not. You have turned their own psychological momentum against them without lifting a finger. This is the foundation. Before any strategy can be deployed, before any word is spoken, you must first achieve victory over the impulse to react. You must become the master of your own inner world, so that the outer world can never be your master. This fortress of the mind is not built in a day. It is forged in the fires of self-discipline and cooled in the waters of patience. But it is the only true defense against a chaotic world. It is the shield that makes you invulnerable. For how can an enemy strike a target he cannot provoke, manipulate, or even understand? This is the first layer of true power, the stillness from which all decisive action is born. For the silence of a master is not empty, but full of power. His calm is not weakness, but an impenetrable fortress. This is the first secret. Comment "I control my interior" to forge this shield, and subscribe to learn how to turn this defense into your most lethal weapon. You have fortified the gates of your mind. Now you will learn why that silent fortress is so feared. The principles of this invisible war are not written in treatises on overt conflict, but in the subtle spaces between action and reaction. They are the weapons of the sovereign mind, wielded not with the hand, but with the will. The first and most disorienting of these is the weaponization of your inner peace. Sun Tzu advises a general to be subtle to the point of formlessness, mysterious to the point of soundlessness. In doing so, he can hold the enemy's fate in his hands. In the psychological battlefield, your unshakable calm is how you achieve this formlessness. Most human interaction is a clumsy dance of predictable steps. A person acts, and they expect a specific reaction. They push. They anticipate you will push back. They bait you with flattery. They await the blush of pride. This is the rhythm of the ordinary world, a crude but reliable system of cause and effect. The sovereign strategist refuses to dance. When an adversary unleashes an attack, a calculated insult, a burst of rage, a manipulative plea, they are not just acting, they are investing. They are investing energy, ego, and strategy into an expected outcome. When you meet this furious investment with nothing but tranquil, observant stillness, you do not just block the attack, you bankrupt the attacker. Your calm becomes a mirror. Instead of seeing their attack land and cause the desired damage, they see only a reflection of their own ugly, contorted aggression. Their force, finding no resistance, does not dissipate. It rebounds upon them. They are left alone on the stage, shouting into a void, their performance suddenly revealed as grotesque and foolish. This is profoundly unnervifying. You have become illegible, a phantom in their strategic calculus. They cannot ascertain if their blow was too weak, if you are plotting a devastating counter-move, or, most disturbingly of all, if you simply hold them in such low regard that their efforts are beneath your notice. This uncertainty is a potent acid that corrodes their confidence. They begin to second-guess their own tactics. Their mind, desperate for a foothold, starts to invent narratives to explain your composure. Perhaps he knows something I don't. Perhaps this is a trap. This internal questioning is the beginning of their defeat. You have forced them to wage war not against you, but against their own imagination. By refusing to take form as the victim, the rival, or the enraged fool they expected, you remain shapeless, like water. They cannot grasp you, they cannot strike you, and they will ultimately exhaust themselves trying. This is the danger of a calm so deep it becomes a strategic abyss. The second principle is the transformation of patience from a passive virtue into an aggressive instrument of intelligence. Sun Tzu taught that knowledge of the enemy's disposition is the key to victory, and that this knowledge cannot be divined from spirits or gleaned from analogy, but must be obtained from men who know the enemy's condition. The reactive person, in their haste, seeks this knowledge through direct confrontation. They clash, they argue, they probe, revealing as much about themselves as they learn. The non-reactive strategist understands that the most valuable information is never given. It is surrendered. Your patience becomes the perfect environment for this surrender. While your adversary burns through their tactical arsenal trying to provoke a response from you, you are doing the most important work of all. You are watching, you are listening, you are learning. Their impulsiveness is a gift. In their frantic attempts to breach your fortress of calm, they reveal everything. They reveal their triggers, the insults that they believe should sting. They reveal their insecurities, the topics they return to again and again. They reveal their strategic limits, the point at which their creativity gives way to frustrated repetition. They reveal their timeline, their impatience, showing you just how desperately they need a quick resolution. This is not passive waiting, it is an active, predatory patience. It is the patience of the crocodile, utterly still at the water's edge, appearing to be a dormant log. It conserves all of its immense power, observing the frantic, energy-wasting movements of its prey. It waits, not out of laziness, but for the one moment of perfect opportunity, the moment of weakness, of distraction, of a fatal misstep. The impulsive opponent mistakes your patience for weakness, your silence for fear, and your stillness for indecision. This miscalculation is the foundation of their downfall. They will grow bolder, more reckless, and in their arrogance, they will overextend themselves, believing the field is clear. Your patience allows them the rope with which to hang themselves. You win the war of attrition before the first decisive blow is ever struck, simply by mastering your own impulse to act prematurely. You let time become your ally, and the enemy's own frantic energy becomes their most formidable foe. Finally, we arrive at the most subtle and profound weapon in this invisible war, the strategic deployment of silence. All warfare, Sun Tzu reminds us, is based on deception. The uninitiated believe deception requires elaborate schemes, false information, and complex maneuvering. The master knows that the most potent form of deception is often an absence. Your silence. In a negotiation, a confrontation, or any high-stakes dialogue, the natural human tendency is to fill empty space. Silence creates a psychological pressure that most people find unbearable. They are accustomed to a conversational rhythm, a back-and-forth volley. When you cease to return the volley and instead offer a thoughtful, unwavering silence, you transfer the entire weight of the interaction onto them. They are left holding the ball, and its weight grows heavier with each passing second. To relieve this pressure, they will begin to talk, and talk, and talk. They will volunteer information you never asked for. They will justify their position, revealing its weaknesses. They will project their own anxieties into your silence, attempting to guess what you are thinking. In doing so, they will answer the very questions you never posed. Your silence becomes the most effective interrogation tool ever devised. It coaxes out confessions, it exposes bluffs, it drains the enemy of their most precious resource, their guarded intentions. You are deceiving them into believing they must work to earn your response, while in truth, their work is simply dismantling their own position right before your eyes. By saying nothing, you invite them to construct their own cage. This is the ultimate paradox of power. Your refusal to speak compels them to reveal everything. You have seen how the external weapons of calm, patience, and silence dismantle the strategies of others. But these are merely the visible effects of a far deeper, more secluded power. Before you can project a formless defense, you must first master the chaotic realm within. The most ferocious battles you will ever fight are not against rivals or competitors. They are waged in the silent amphitheater of your own soul. This is the domain of psychological warfare, and its first principle is this: you cannot command the world until you have achieved absolute command over yourself. The source of all reactivity, all weakness, is the internal tyrant known as the ego. This is the gossamer king that sits upon a throne in your mind, demanding constant validation and flaring with rage at the slightest perceived disrespect. It is this fragile monarch that is wounded by insults, intoxicated by praise, and terrified of being ignored. The average person lives their entire life as a servant to this king, rushing to defend its honor, soothe its anxieties, and feed its insatiable hunger. The strategist's first and most ruthless act of rebellion is to quietly dethrone this tyrant. This is a war of attrition, not of violent confrontation. You do not destroy the ego, you learn to disidentify from it. You must cultivate the art of the inner observer, a silent, unshakable consciousness that watches the storms of emotion as one might watch clouds passing in the sky. When anger rises, the observer notes, "There is anger." It does not say, "I am angry." When pride swells, the observer registers, "There is pride," not "I am great." This subtle but profound shift in internal language is the key to your liberation. You begin to understand that you are not the storm. You are the sky in which the storm occurs. The emotions, the impulses, the frantic thoughts, they are transient weather patterns, while your true self is the vast, unchanging space that contains them. By practicing this detachment, you cut off the ego's supply lines. An insult is thrown your way. The ego screams for retaliation, but the observer simply watches the scream, acknowledges it, and lets it fade, offering it no energy, no fuel. Praise is offered. The ego yearns to gorge itself on the validation, but the observer notes the fleeting pleasure and refuses to become addicted to it. You starve the tyrant by refusing to engage in its petty dramas. This internal discipline is the forge of sovereign non-reactivity. Each time you choose observation over reaction, you strengthen your true will and weaken the ego's grip. It is an arduous process. It requires you to sit with discomfort, to absorb a blow without returning it, to smile calmly when your every instinct is to lash out, but the reward is immeasurable. You achieve a state of inner quietude, a mental fortress so deep and so secure that the chaos of the outside world can no longer breach its walls. This is the supreme victory Sun Tzu speaks of, the victory over the self. It is from this unshakable core that true power emanates. For the man who is master of his own emotions is impervious to the emotional manipulations of others. He cannot be baited, for he has no hook on which to be caught. He cannot be intimidated, for his sense of worth is not external. He cannot be seduced by flattery, for he is his own most honest judge. He has won the war within, and now the outer world becomes a place not of threat, but of strategic possibility. This internal mastery inevitably sculpts how you are perceived by others. The inner world projects its shadow onto the outer, and a mind at peace projects an aura of formidable power. Here we engage one of Sun Tzu's most potent principles of deception. When strong, appear weak. When weak, appear strong. The conventional man tries to project strength through overt displays, a loud voice, an aggressive posture, a quickness to anger. The strategist, secure in his internal fortress, does the opposite. His non-reactivity, his silence, his calm, are often misinterpreted by the unsophisticated as weakness, passivity, or fear. This misinterpretation is not a disadvantage, it is his most powerful camouflage. Let them underestimate you. Let them mistake your patience for indecision and your silence for ignorance. Their arrogance becomes your greatest asset. While they believe they are dealing with a lamb, they lower their defenses. They speak more freely. They reveal their true intentions. They become careless, for they do not perceive a threat. You allow them to construct a completely false image of you, an image that serves your purpose, and you operate with impunity from behind this mask of harmlessness. Your objective is not to be feared or to be loved in the conventional sense. Your objective is to be unfathomable. When you consistently fail to react as expected, you become a puzzle that people cannot solve. They are used to pushing a button and getting a result. With you, they push the button, and nothing happens. This breaks their model of the world. It makes them uneasy. They begin to attribute your calmness not to weakness, but to a hidden strength, a depth of calculation they cannot comprehend. Your stillness is no longer seen as passivity, but as a sign of immense self-control. Your silence is not an absence of words, but the presence of thought. You cultivate an aura of being deliberate, of being a force that moves according to its own internal logic, impervious to external pressures. This is the foundation of true respect, a respect born not of intimidation, but of a profound and slightly fearful mystery. People become wary of confronting you, not because you are aggressive, but because they have learned that their usual tactics, emotional leverage, pressure, manipulation, are utterly useless against you. Over time, every instance of this masterful self-control contributes to the construction of your most powerful weapon, your reputation. Each action, and more importantly, each deliberate inaction, is a chisel stroke upon the stone of your public persona. This reputation becomes a living entity, a shadowy emissary that enters a room long before you do, shaping the dynamics of an interaction before it has even begun. When it becomes known that you are a person of unshakable composure, that you cannot be rattled or provoked, a remarkable thing happens. People stop trying. Your reputation becomes a preemptive defense system. It is a psychological field of deterrence. Potential adversaries will assess the cost of engaging you and conclude that it is too high. The effort required to even attempt to disturb your equilibrium is immense, and the probability of success is infinitesimal. You begin to win conflicts before they are ever declared. You have conditioned the world around you to understand that certain lines of attack are simply off-limits when dealing with you. This is the embodiment of Sun Tzu's highest ideal: to subdue the enemy without ever having to fight. Your reputation does the fighting for you. It is a silent herald that announces your invulnerability, a gravitational field that warps the behavior of others, compelling them to approach you on your terms and your terms alone. You have learned to forge the armor of calm and to wield silence as a blade. You have transformed yourself into an impregnable fortress and allowed your reputation to become your silent vanguard. Now, before we unveil the final act of this grand strategy, ensure you are subscribed with notifications enabled, for victory is reserved for those who persevere until the end. You understand defense. Now you must understand the nature of the decisive strike. For the sovereign strategist, the attack is rarely what the uninitiated imagine. It is not a furious explosion of pent-up aggression. It is not a dramatic confrontation or a thunderous declaration of war. That is the crude theater of the reactive. The master's strike is something else entirely. It is precise, almost imperceptible, and devastatingly final. It is the culmination of all your patience, all your observation, and all your conserved energy. It is, as Sun Tzu described, like the well-timed swoop of a falcon, a single, focused burst of energy that shatters its target in an instant. The moment for this strike is not chosen by anger or by ego. It is revealed. It presents itself only after your opponent, driven mad by your formlessness and exhausted from their futile assaults against your calm, has made a critical error. In their desperation to elicit a response from you, they overextend their resources, contradict their own arguments, alienate their allies, or expose a fatal vulnerability. They have been fighting a war on two fronts, one against you and a more draining one against their own frustration. At the peak of their emotional chaos, their judgment is clouded. This is the moment you have been waiting for. This is the opening created not by your force, but by their own lack of discipline. The strike itself is often an act of surgical simplicity. It can be a single, quiet question that exposes the core contradiction of their entire position, causing it to collapse like a house of cards. It can be a single, decisive action, taken while they are distracted, that realigns the entire strategic landscape in your favor. Often, the most powerful strike is the simple act of stepping aside and allowing their own momentum to carry them over the precipice they have blindly approached. The true art is in the execution. Because you have remained emotionally detached, your action is free from the corrupting influence of rage or revenge. It is clean. It is impersonal. It is executed with the placid focus of a master artisan. While the opponent was flailing, you were conserving. While they were shouting, you were observing. You have a reservoir of clarity and energy that they have long since squandered. Therefore, when you finally act, your move possesses a disproportionate amount of force. It is the focused energy of a still river, channeled through a narrow gorge, suddenly possessing the power to cut through stone. The victory was secured long before this moment. It was secured in the first instance you chose not to react. It was secured with every insult you absorbed without flinching, with every moment of patience you exercised while they exhausted themselves. The final decisive act is not the battle itself, it is merely the collection of the prize. After the strike lands, the true nature of the strategist is revealed. Where the ordinary victor would celebrate, gloat, and seek applause, the master simply returns to his state of quiet observation. He does not revel in the enemy's defeat, for the defeat was merely a logical consequence, an inevitable outcome of a flawed process. His objective was never the destruction of the opponent, but the establishment of a superior order. He now watches the ripples of his decisive action spread across the water. The aftermath of the victory is more important than the victory itself. A true victory is not one that creates bitterness, resentment, and the seeds of future conflict. A true victory creates a new reality, a new equilibrium, where your position is so fundamentally secure that future challenges become unthinkable. This is the establishment of a lasting peace, but it is a peace dictated entirely on your terms. Your former adversaries, having seen the futility of their emotional tactics and the decisive power of your disciplined response, are not merely defeated, they are educated. They learn that engagement with you on any terms other than respect and rationality is a strategic dead end. Your reputation for unshakable calm, now coupled with the demonstrated capacity for devastatingly effective action, becomes the ultimate deterrent. This brings us to the final philosophical conclusion about the nature of this dangerous trait. The greatest power is not the ability to win any fight. It is the ability to shape reality so profoundly that the fight never needs to happen. The most dangerous quality a person can possess is not an offensive weapon they wield against others. It is an internal state of being so sovereign, so self-contained, and so impenetrable that it renders the offensive weapons of others completely obsolete. You become a strategic black hole. The provocations, manipulations, and emotional assaults of others are drawn toward you, but instead of causing an impact, they simply vanish, their energy absorbed into your infinite stillness. You achieve ultimate influence not by controlling others, but by demonstrating such absolute control over yourself that others are compelled to reconsider the very nature of their own tactics. The supreme power is the throne that no one dares to approach, not out of fear of the king's wrath, but out of a deep intuitive understanding that the king is playing an entirely different game, a game whose rules they cannot comprehend and whose outcome has already been decided. This is the ultimate paradox. To become the most dangerous person in the room, you must first become the absolute master of the peace within.